Thanks for checking out this movie review video. So this is for the 2023 film Saw 10, or as some people are calling it, Saw X, because they're using the Roman numeral. I'll say off the top of the bat, I just honestly think that they should just stop with some of these movies. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, especially because at this point, how much more story can you really add to it? And you have to walk this very fine line of being the same as a bunch of the movies that came before it, but also being a bit different or offering something new. And that's really hard to do. I actually thought they did a decent job with that with Jigsaw, but and this one wasn't bad, but I did have some issues with it. I didn't love it as much as I heard a lot of people talking about online. A lot of people were kind of like, this is the best Saw movie since the first one. I personally don't think so, but that's just my personal opinion. The other thing is, when I say that I wish they would stop with these movies, it's a business, though. It's never going to happen. As long as they're making money, which I believe Saw 10 did, they're going to keep doing these. So I'm pretty sure we're going to keep getting them. Anyway, Saw 10, directed by Kevin Greutert, who also did Saw 6, Saw 3D, Jezebel, Visions, and Jackals. Haven't seen those last few. Written by Pete Goldfinger, who wrote Sorority Row, Piranha 3D, Clown, Jigsaw, and Spiral, which, by the way, I did not see Spiral. I've seen every other Saw-related movie, though. And also Josh Stolberg, another writer who did Sorority Row, Piranha 3D, Crawl Space, Jigsaw, and Spiral. So some people familiar with each other working together. Synopsis, don't want to give you too much. It is a Saw film. It has Tobin Bell in it. He plays John Kramer, a.k.a. Jigsaw. So it is continuing this story. Now, it's a story that fits between the first and the second movie. So timeline-wise, you're just getting more of an insight into John Kramer. It is basically a character piece, giving more of a backstory to him personally. Obviously, a lot of the same Saw stuff is in there. You have to have the elaborate traps that can kill people, depending on what they decide to do. There's got to be good gore, all that stuff. So all that stuff's there. But it's just more backstory on John Kramer. I don't want to go any further than that because it would just ruin way too much. So just going to leave that there. Where they start the movie is very familiar material to those who have been watching the franchise. It'll feel super familiar. You'll be like, oh, okay, I remember stuff just like this. So you start to question, are we going to go anywhere super new here, or are we going to rehash things? Now, my personal feeling, I know a lot of people have said that they really like this because they're getting more insight into the character of John Kramer and how he became Jigsaw and what his motivation is and all that stuff. I feel like we already got enough of that in the previous movies. So to have a whole movie, for the most part, just trying to do more of that, it just seems very unnecessary to me. It's just very redundant, and so I didn't really like it for that reason. Now, it always reminds me of, I believe it's a Stephen King quote, every character has a backstory and none of it's interesting. I kind of agree with that for the most part. There are certain instances where it is more interesting, but for someone like a Jigsaw character, I personally don't really want to know. I think it's more chilling, it's more scary, it's more interesting to me personally if there's a question mark about that person's motivations. The deeper you get into it and the more you try to kind of humanize these individuals, you run into a few issues. You run into the issue of, is it actually going to be interesting because whatever other people thought up in their minds may very well be better? And that can just lead to disappointment. Or is it blurring the lines too much between someone who is obviously terrible? Because with the character like John Kramer, they throw a lot of like pulling at the heartstrings type thing, and that was done in previous movies I'm talking about, not saying necessarily this one, but they throw a lot of that stuff in, and they're just like, now you can understand where he's coming from. And I know some people like to kind of like feel that conflicted feeling, but I don't know, like it can also cause problems that then transcend into society for people who don't understand this type of stuff, because there are people who take things way too literally. Now, people who are true horror fans, I don't really think they have that problem personally, but fringe people who fringe to horror and people who just kind of dabble in it here and there. It's a little different. Anyway, the typical rotating camera work is present. A lot of the actual style, the look of all the Saw films is here again. That real like sped up kind of rotational camera work. I figured, it has to be there. People kind of look for it. So I don't like it, but I'm fine with it being there because it's been established to be a Saw movie thing. It's interesting that they just used Tobin Bell as he is since he looks a lot older. I think they were going through this whole thing like he's and this has been the case throughout the entire series. He has cancer. He's dying of cancer, So I think they were just like, well, he's just looking bad because he's going through cancer treatment. And he has cancer, so he looks bad. So I just thought that was kind of interesting to like not really try to give him makeup to make him look younger or do any like CGI stuff to make him look younger or anything. They're just like, no, that's just as he is. And honestly, I think it kind of works. I mean, I didn't pay too much attention to it. It was fine. Early on, it definitely feels like you're getting shown way more than is needed, and it makes it feel pretty slow. This movie is about 2 hours. There is no way that this movie needed to be that long. No way it should have been that long. There's a lot of repetition, like I was saying. A lot of stuff that gets covered in this has been covered in other Saw movies as far as backstory for John Kramer. They just kind of expand upon it, and it's like, do we need this? My answer, no. We don't need any of this. And for me, a lot of it was not interesting at all because I felt like they were just rehashing stuff from earlier in the series. And I'm just like, okay, you're just showing me the same thing, just kind of in a different way. There's the persistent question of how is this going to matter because you already know what happens to John Kramer and when. That's another thing. Like, what you're being shown, does it actually matter? I think for some people, to a degree, it does because you want to know exactly like what's going on in his mind. How did he get from being just playing John Kramer to being Jigsaw and being so malicious, basically. So for those people, I think yes, but for people like me who, believe there really isn't much of any story anyway to the Saw franchise, no. I just don't really think it matters, especially because you know exactly what's happening with John Kramer, and that's why I think it's also weird that they kind of like put the events between the first and second movie, because you already know where things are going from there. You've seen the other movies. Well, most people. About 30 minutes in is when things really shift, but there are some plot holes associated with that shift. There are plot holes in general in this, but I also think that plot holes are a thing in the Saw franchise in general as well, and I think people who are just like diehard Saw franchise fans are probably going to still be pretty good with this movie because they will overlook those plot holes because they're used to them. Very used to these plot holes. It is gruesome with interesting traps, as would be expected. I think that is one of the main selling points. That is a must-have for any Saw film, and I know they most likely will be doing more of these, so we will continue to get those. You need creativity, and they do that. It feels a lot larger in scope than any other Saw film, especially because John Kramer actually travels somewhere. For the most part, it's just taking place in like one building or like two buildings or something in the movie. So this actually has a weird feeling because it feels like the world gets expanded because he's leaving the city. He's leaving this one city that he's been in like the entire time, basically. Or we're not just in like one location for the most part of the movie. He's actually going somewhere. He's going abroad, and you're just like, oh, this feels very different. Feels very weird. I don't think it matters that much, but Tobin Bell, his performance, quite good. I don't want to give up another person who may show up in the film, but that other person who shows up on the earlier end in the film, kind of rough. Their performance was kind of rough, but Tobin Bell, nice job. He's really, he's getting up there in age, but he still has his chops. Also, I want to say super nice guy. I met him before. He's very, very nice. Also connected to the Saw films, by the way. Shawnee Smith, I met her at one point as well. Also super nice. So they are very awesome, nice people. There's definitely too much dialogue in the film. More showing and less telling is needed in this one. Way too many things are said as opposed to just being shown. That's one of the big issues I have with film. If they treat their audience like they're stupid, that they can't just watch something and get stuff out of it, that they have to be told by the character with dialogue that you're already seeing this stuff in action. And another thing, like I was saying, it's like it's a 2-hour film. It didn't need to be this long. There is a lot of fat in the movie that needed to be trimmed in the form of dialogue. There's a lot of stuff that gets said that just does not matter at all, and you could easily and should have easily just cut it out. Like all Saw films, the music is really over the top. It bashes you over the head constantly. The thing I hate about that is the fact that when you're constantly doing it, it doesn't really end up having all that much impact. Plus, you just feel like what's going on with the level of music, like how intense it is, plus how loud it is, it's being overdone. It kind of makes me laugh a little bit. It makes me not take things very serious. It's just ridiculous. Some of the dialogue is really bad. Talking about there being too much dialogue, there's some really awful dialogue in this movie, by the way. There are some performances that aren't great, so that doesn't help it with some kind of bad delivery from time to time. But the dialogue, there's some poorly written dialogue in here, unfortunately. The ending is okay. I didn't love the ending, didn't hate the ending. I was kind of like, it's an ending. It's fine. So I'll just say that. And there's a lot of writing out of convenience in this movie. Literally situations where things that are going on in this movie, everything had to be exact in order for things to go that certain way. And you're just like, there's no way. Like, there's just no way. But the script is like, this is the story we want to tell, and this is how we're going to do it. We just move it. So writing out of convenience, there's a lot of that. But I also feel like there's a lot of writing out of convenience in the entire Saw franchise. So again, it's just one of those things that Saw fans are just used to. So I think you can get away with a lot with a movie like this because of that reason. It's definitely too long for what it is. Already said that. Like some films in the franchise, it goes after our messed up medical system. Actually, not some. A lot of the films in the Saw franchise have, had overt commentary about how messed up our medical system is in the United States. And, they're not wrong. It's pretty messed up. It's a lot of bad things about it, but there are a lot of good things about it too. So this just continues it. It's just like the medical system bad. Anyway, so it's very samesies to me in a lot of ways. So I didn't think it was a bad movie. I enjoyed it enough. So out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm going to give it a 3-star rating. Not one of my favorite horror movies of the year, like some people are saying for them, but hey, everyone has their own opinion, and this is where I'd like yours. Go ahead and put it in the comments. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you in between on it? Give me just like a sentence or two letting me know why. Do me a favor, hit thumbs up on this video if you enjoy it to any degree, or you just want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Also, subscribe to my channel if you like any of my videos. I appreciate that a lot. That is the best way for you to repay me for free content. And also, you can hit the notification bell button because then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which I'm doing at least 3 a week of normal length and then a few shorts each week. So anyway, regardless, thank you very much for watching this video. And until next time, keep it brutal.